Mary had a little lamb.
From the classiest radio station on the air, this is...
Welcome to the Black Rabbit's Curse, where every shadow hides a sinister verse. Hear the airs thick with tales of terror twist in your head into the dark unknown, where fear takes root and chills the bone. Beware, dear traveler, for once you're here, the curse may linger year after year. Hickory Dickory Dock, a Black Rabbit's Curse original, inspired by the nursery rhyme. Everybody in Broward County knew about the funeral home clock. It stood in the main viewing room of Bellwether and Sons Funeral Parlor. Tall, black, older than the building itself. The wood was warped like burnt skin. Glass cloudy, brass pendulum swung slowly behind the door like a tongue moving behind teeth. Tick, tock, tick, tock. The clock had no brand name, no maker's mark, no date. Only one carving near the base. Hickory Dickory Dock. Marcus Bellwether hated that clock. His grandfather loved it. His father respected it. But Marcus hated it. Because ever since he was a boy, he swore he could hear something moving inside. Not gears, not wood settling. Something small, scratching, climbing, waiting. When Marcus inherited the funeral home, the first thing he tried to do was get rid of it. He called movers. They lifted the clock 6 inches off the floor. Then one of them screamed, dropped his side, ran outside with blood pouring from his ear. The other mover stood frozen, staring at the clock face, his lips trembling. Marcus asked, "What happened?" The man whispered, It counted me. Then he quit on the spot. After that, Marcus left the clock alone. But every night at midnight, it played the same tune. Not music, a rhyme. A child's voice would whisper from inside the clock.
Hickory Dickory Dock.
Marcus would stand in the hallway, frozen, listening.
The mouse ran up the clock.
Then came the scratching, fast, tiny claws scraping wood from the inside.
The clock struck 1.
Dong.
The mouse ran down.
And then something inside the clock would fall. Hard. Thud.
Hickory Dickory Dock.
Every night, same rhyme, same voice, same thud. Till the night the clock struck 13. It happened during a viewing. The deceased of Miss Everly Carter, 91 years old, sweet woman, church lady, died peacefully in her sleep. At least that's what the death certificate said. Her family gathered in the viewing room. At 7:00 p.m., soft organ music played. Flowers lined the walls. Her body rested in an open casket beneath warm yellow light, and the clock stood in the corner, silent. Marcus was greeting relatives when a little girl tug his sleeve. She couldn't have been more than 6. She pointed at the clock.
Mister,
She whispered.
why is there a mouse in there?
Marcus looked. Nothing. The pendulum swung. Tick. Tock. The girl frowned.
It's not walking right.
Marcus crouched down. What do you mean? The girl's eyes stayed on the clock.
It has hands.
Before Marcus could answer, the clock stopped. The room went quiet. The organ music cut off. The lights dimmed. Then the clock began to chime. Dong. Everybody turned. Dong. Marcus checked his watch. 7:13 p.m. The clock should have not been chiming. Dong. 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 13 times. And on the 13th chime, Mrs. Carter sat up in the casket. The room exploded. People screamed. Chairs tripped over. Her daughter fainted. Marcus stumbled backward. Mrs. Carter's mouth open, but the voice that came out wasn't hers. It was a small child, like singing.
Hickory Dickory Dock.
Her head turned towards the clock.
The mouse ran out the clock.
Her dead eyes rolled towards Marcus.
The clock struck 1.
Then her neck snapped sideways, hard. The sound cracked through the room like breaking wood.
The mouse ran down.
Her body collapsed back in the casket. And from inside the clock, something laughed. Tiny, wet, hungry.
Hickory Dickory Dock.
By morning, the police called it a postmortem nerve reaction. Stress, mass hysteria, faulty electric wiring, anything but what everybody knew what they saw. But Marcus found something the police missed. Inside Mrs. Carter's mouth, tucked behind her tongue, was a tiny brass gear, still ticking. Marcus shut the funeral home down for 3 days. He searched the office, his father's records, his grandfather's journals, anything about the clock. Finally, in a locked cabinet beneath old and balmy receipts, he found a black leather notebook. His grandfather's handwritten filled the pages. At first, the entries were normal. Funeral dates, family names, payment notes, and the writing changed. Sharper, messier, frayed. One page read, "The clock does not measure time, it measures date." Another, "Never let it strike 13 while a body is in the room." Marcus kept reading. The clock had arrived in 1913, delivered by a wagon. No sender, no invoice, no explanation. That same week, children in town began vanishing, one by one, always at night, always after their parents heard singing through the walls. The town blamed drifters, wolves, bad men, but Marcus's grandfather wrote something different. The children were not taken. They were wounded. Marcus turned the page. There was a drawing. A child's body folded into a shape like a clockwork, spine bent, arms twisted, ribs open like gears, and beside it, written over and over, "The mouse is not a mouse." Marcus felt sick. Then he heard it scratching above him. He looked up. The funeral home was empty. The sound moved across the ceiling, slow, careful, like something crawling upside down. Then came the singing. Not from the clock this time, from the walls, multiple voices, children, soft and distant.
Hickory Dickory Dock.
Marcus backed into the hallway.
The mouse ran out the clock.
The lights flickered. At the end of the hallway stood a little boy, bare feet, pale, dressed in funeral clothes from another century. His head tilted too far to one side. Marcus whispered, who are you?" The boy smiled. His teeth were tiny brass gears. Then he pointed behind Marcus. The clock chimed.
Dong.
Marcus spun around. The viewing room was gone. In its place was a long, dark stairway leading down beneath the funeral home. A stairway Marcus had never seen before. The boy whispered.
It's almost your hour.
Then every clock in the building began ticking at once. Marcus should have left. He should have burnt the building down. He should have walked away and never looked back. But he didn't, because on the last page of his grandfather's notebook, he found his own name, written before he was born. Marcus Bellwether, 113. So at 12:57 a.m., Marcus opened a hidden door beneath the clock. The stairway smelled like dust, mold, old pennies, and something worse. Something sweet, like spoiled milk and dead flowers. The lower he went, the louder the ticking became. Not from one clock, from hundreds, thousands. The stair ended in the chamber beneath the funeral home. And Marcus saw them, children, not alive, not dead, built into the walls. Tiny faces pressed against the wood and brass, eyes open, mouths moving, bodies fused with gears, springs, pendulums, and bones. Every missing child, every mouse, every voice that had sung from the clock. They were the mechanism. The funeral home had not been built over a basement. It had been built over a machine, At the center of the room stood a massive clock face carved into the floor, and on it were names, hundreds of names, some scratched out, some fresh. One name glowing faintly, Marcus Bellwether. A voice spoke behind him. "You finally came down." Marcus turned. His grandfather stood in the darkness, but he had been dead for 20 years. His skin was gray, his suit was dusty, and where his eyes should have been, two clock hands spun slowly. Marcus stumbled backward. No. His grandfather smiled. "We all come down eventually." Marcus shook his head. "What the hell? What is this?" His grandfather stepped closer. "A family business." Marcus looked at the walls. At children? His grandfather smiled faded. At time? Then the chamber began to sing. Every child, every wall, every year.
Hickory Dickory Dock.
Marcus covered his ears.
The mouse ran up the clock.
His grandfather pointed at a giant clock face beneath Marcus' feet. "Never understood the rhyme." The hands on the floor began to move. 12:58, 12:59, 1 o'clock. Dong.
Clock strike 1.
Marcus stopped as something grabbed his ankle. Tiny hands, cold hands, children hands, pulling him towards the center. His grandfather leaned close and whispered, "The mouse runs up the clock because it's trying to escape." Marcus clawed at the floor. Splinters tore into his fingers. The clock strikes 1. The children pulled harder.
And the mouse ran down.
Marcus looked up and saw the impossible. The grandfather clock from upstairs was not sitting in the viewing room. It was growing out from the ceiling. Its pendulum was a spine. Its gears were teeth. Its wood was skin. And inside the glass case, something small pressed against the face against the spine. Not a mouse, a child. Marcus recognized him from old family photos. His grandfather as a boy, still trapped, still singing. Then Marcus understood. The man standing in front of him wasn't his grandfather. It was whatever came out the clock wearing him. The thing smiled wider. "Your turn." The clock struck 13 times. When Marcus woke up, he was back upstairs. The funeral home was normal. Morning light spilled through the curtains. The clock stood in the corner, silent. For one beautiful second, Marcus thought it had been a nightmare. Then he tried to move. He couldn't. He looked down. He was standing upright inside the clock, behind the glass. His arms were pinned at his sides, his ribs open around brass gears. His heartbeat had become ticking. Tick, tock, tick, tock. He tried to scream, but the only sound that came out was a tiny scratching noise. Then the funeral home door opened. A woman walked in, young, black dress, red lipstick, calm smile. She looked around like she had been there before. Marcus recognized her from the missing children's wall. Evan and Carter, 91, 6 years old. The same little girl who had vanished in 1913. The same Mrs. Carter whose body has sat up in the casket. She walked to the clock, tapped the glass. "Poor Marcus," she whispered. Marcus' eyes widened. She smiled. He thought the clock was feeding on the dead. She leaned closer. But the dead were never the food. Behind her, the viewing room filled with people. Every corpse Marcus had prepared. Every family he had confronted. Everybody that had passed through Bellwether and Sons. They stood in rows, smiling, watching him. Evelyn whispered, "The funeral home doesn't bury people." She looked up at the clock face. "It ages children." Marcus stared in horror as her face began changing, wrinkles crawling all over her skin, hair whitening, spine bending. In seconds, she became the old woman again, Mrs. Carter. She smiled with Marcus's grandfather's smile and spoke in his father's voice. Every time the rhyme is sung, one child becomes old enough to be buried. Her mouth stretched wider. One adult became young enough to run. Marcus looked at the corpses. Their bodies were shrinking, changing, bones cracking behind, gray hair darkening, dead eyes becoming bright. They were becoming children. The missing children had never disappeared. They had been traded again and again and again for over 100 years. That was the family business, not funerals, replacements. The clock chimed once. Mrs. Carter opened the front door. Outside, children stood on the sidewalk, hundreds of them, barefoot, smiling, waiting to go home to families who had never known the difference. Then Mrs. Carter turned back to Marcus. "One more thing," she said. The rhyme was never a warning. Her voice became small, sweet, childlike.
It was instructions.
The children outside began to sing, soft at first, then louder.
Hickory Dickory Dock, the mouse ran up the clock. The clock struck one, the mouse ran down. Hickory Dickory Dock.
Marcus felt his body shook inside the clock. His bones softened, his hands became small, his voice became younger and younger and younger, until he was no longer Marcus Bellwether. He was a little boy trapped behind glass, watching the funeral home doors open for the next family. A mother entered, holding the hand of her son. The boy looked at the clock and smiled, not scared, not confused, familiar, like he had been there before. Then the boy whispered,
Found you.
Marcus tried to scream, but the clock only ticked. Tick, tock, tick, tock. And just before the screen cuts to black, the clock strikes 13 again. Dong, dong, dong. And from inside the clock, Marcus' tiny voice begins to sing,
Hickory Dickory Dock.
They never made the rhyme to teach children time. They made it so the clock would know who to take next. Sit here, heart still racing, eyes wide open. Remember, the terror doesn't end when the video does. You may try to forget, but the shadows have a way of following. The whispers grow louder each night, don't they? So go ahead, close your eyes, if you dare. But know this, you're not alone. Not anymore. But the Black Rabbit's curse has seen you, and it's waiting. So what happens when the lights go out? If you want to find out, make sure you come back. But next time, will you be ready? Sleep well. Or don't.